Oh, hi, everybody. My name is Matt Storrs, and welcome to Mattsplaining. On today's episode, I have an expert on who I'm extremely excited to speak with. Expert, please introduce yourself and tell us what you're an expert in.
Sure. I am Rebecca Williamson. I am the owner of Cambria House and Farm. It is a haunted wedding venue, and I'm an expert in ghosts and the paranormal. And so I've been a paranormal investigator for over 20 years and have gone to some incredible haunted locations that you may or may not have heard of. And yeah, so I'm an expert in ghosts.
Absolutely fantastic. I have spoken to a number of paranormal investigators and ghost adjacent individuals, and I feel like I've learned quite a bit from them. And one of the things that I think that is most consistent with them is this inherent romantic dynamic that most ghosts have because there's this loss or this unfinished business, and for some people that unfinished business would be an unrequited love or something that they wish they would have said to their kids, or a business transaction that they wish they had done, or they want to oversee the location where they were born to make sure it's taken care of, those sorts of things. But for some people, it's simply, oh, I wish I had filed my taxes. It's, I wish that, oh, I had that one last Kinder Hippo in the pack. I wish I could have gotten that. And then they're haunting the Kinder Hippo factory. I think it's just the Kinder factory. I would be surprised if they have a factory just for the Kinder Hippos. They
You never
might.
know.
Yeah. I mean, with what they have in terms of machinery these days, I wouldn't be surprised. Now, so that's sometimes what will happen. And then there's a lot of ways that they can manifest, whether it is through energy or just a sense like getting a chill in the air as you walk into a room or walk into an area of the forest. And some people say, oh, that's an air pressure distribution, but like, how did the air pressure get distributed in such a weird way? So suddenly, some of these disruptions are more than just a rustling in the bushes, so to speak. It is a real sense of mystery. And that can be one indicator. Another indicator can be like the standard, the white sheet going by. And it's,
That's definitely an indicator.
yeah, that white sheet going by. And but in today's society, especially with the onset of IKEA and a lot more people, we're not limited. The Victorians were really big on white sheets and bed linens. And so a lot of the media depicts these ghosts in these white linens, but they're not limited to that these days. We have IKEA that sells bed sheets, we have Bed Bath and Beyond, we have all these things. You could have a ghost floating by you in a leopard print, the satin bed sheet that your parents used, and you're like, oh, that's weird that they have that, but okay, that's how the ghost feels comfortable in their own ectoplasm, so to speak. And so that could be one way. They could also manifest through things moving, and the sense of energy in a room that can be very simple of a cast iron skillet flying across the room, and you're like, that is a 5 pound skillet. How did it move across the room? I don't understand. Or something falling, and the lights going off, the electrical problems. For instance, I thought that I had a ghost earlier this year because my lights were flickering. And I was really concerned about it because I'm like, oh, there's no indication that there's anything like that. And so I had a paranormal investigator slash electrician come over, which is a whole subsection of businesses that I think that not enough people capitalize on, because he's able to say, yeah, like as an electrician, I can't fix this. As a paranormal investigator, I can. And he was a
Multi-talented, multi-talented. Yes.
exactly. And I feel that sort of like business and that sort of being able to tap in to what could be causing the problem, whether it's an emotional connection to the ghost, whether it's a financial connection or anger or something like that, that they have lasting, you can really pull through. But also at the same time, I feel, they correct me if I'm wrong in the next little part, but I would imagine that a lot of ghosts appreciate the idea of being able to be a plus however many to these weddings that you're putting on at the venue, because then they're still sticking around. Hey, I get to go to another wedding this weekend, and that must bring a little bit of joy into their afterlives. Now, based on what you've heard so far, about how much of that would you say was accurate?
Minus the sheets, actually, a good portion of that was pretty accurate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Good, good, good. I've been lucky enough to talk to some really fantastic investigators, so I'm happy to hear that some of their insight had rubbed off on me. What
Yeah.
got you interested into the paranormal?
I've always just had a love of ghosts and ghost stories. And when I was in grade school, I checked out every single book in my library on ghosts and ghost stories and just absolutely loved all that sort of stuff. And then I found out that they do ghost tours, and around 2000, it really became a thing where you could go on a ghost tour. And so my friends bought me tickets for my birthday and we all went, and I had an incredible experience. And then the next night they had a midnight cemetery tour, which naturally I signed up and went to. And that was pretty much all she wrote. Like I just started going all the time. And yeah, here we are now. I own a haunted location. So it was really a natural progression from I love ghost stories to let's go do this.
That's fantastic. And how did you find the venue there? What was that process?
This was a farmhouse out in the country that my grandparents owned. It's a historic home that was built in the 1860s. And my grandparents bought it because they loved history and antiques. And they restored the home and then treated it like a life size dollhouse where they filled it with antiques. And we had family gatherings and events out there. And I had a couple cousins that got married out there. And then after they passed away, I bought the farm and decided that I would turn it into a wedding venue because if we've had a few weddings, surely we can do a few more. And so that was the initial thing was to, okay, let's do some more weddings. And then I actually spent the night out there and realized it was haunted. We were hearing footsteps and noises, and I had friends who obviously who investigated, and so I reached out to them and they came and investigated, and we decided maybe we could do our own ghost tours, and so we did. And those were super successful, and
Wonderful.
yeah, it's been a great revenue for this farm building out in the middle of nowhere, the more museum than house. And yeah, so I do weddings too, but a lot of the stuff I do is paranormal. And I host like what I call a paranormal 101, a ghost tour 101. Like
Okay.
if people have always wanted to go and look for ghosts, they can come and do one of my tours out there. And it's a 2 hour tour where we tell you like how we look for ghosts, like the basics. And then you get to investigate with a paranormal team and their equipment.
Fantastic. And do you know anything, have you been able to inquire and find out any information about the ghosts on the property or like their histories or anything like that?
Yeah. So since it's a historic location, I have a lot of really well documented history out there. It was built by the Cambry family and they lived in the home until 1979 when my grandparents bought it. So I have a ton of history. It was a working apple orchard from the 1850s until around the 1940s. And then it was owned by a minister. So one of the Cambry descendants was a Presbyterian minister and he lived there on the farm. So we have a ton of well documented history. And then, like, when we do the investigations, we're able to confirm that those are the Cambry family haunting the home. And it was a happy home for them. They loved living out there. And now, after they've passed on, that's their home and they love it there and they don't want to leave. And
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, having consistent weddings and people coming through and being so like intrigued and delighted by it, I think that would make it hard for any ghost to want to leave at that point.
yeah, I really think that they enjoy having the weddings and events out there. It makes it feel like they're having friends over again. And
Absolutely.
since when it was an apple orchard, they had a big influx of people that came and picked apples and stuff. And so it's like that again, where they're inviting more people over to the farm. And it's just a neat, really location out in the middle of nowhere. It's quiet, it's peaceful and beautiful. But yeah, it also just happens to be haunted.
Absolutely. And when somebody has an interest in going on one of your tours, but they might have some anxiety about it or like apprehensions or anything. Do you tell them anything, or do you have like things to put them at ease or to help?
Right. I usually go over the main types of paranormal activity.
Mhm.
So the first type is like a residual haunting. It's just the energy that's left behind in a location by people living there. And my farm has a lot of residual energy. And it's like I said, it's just the energy left behind. You're not really getting an interaction out of it, but you'll hear like footsteps and doors opening and closing and that sort of thing. The second type of activity is what I call an intelligent haunting. It's what most people think of when they think of a ghost, like Casper. You ask
Mhm.
a question and you'll get an intelligent response. The spirit of somebody who's left behind is still there. And then the third type is a demonic haunting, and that's
Mhm.
exactly what it sounds like. And if you think of Poltergeist or any of the really creepy, scary movies, that would be a demonic haunting. I do not have that out at Cambry. It's pretty rare. And usually, when I tell people, that's usually when the big sigh of relief happens,
Right.
and we're not looking for demons. That's not what we do. We're more interacting with a Casper type entity, somebody who's just passed on, who just happens to be on the other side of the veil. And it's more, we're looking for answers. They're looking for a chance to communicate. That, like you mentioned before, like a lot of times they're there for a reason. There's something that they want to accomplish. My ghosts out at Cambry are more just there because they love it, but like some of them really have a message that they want to share or a story or something that they want to be able to pass on. And doing the paranormal investigation, they have that chance to pass on that story or what had happened to them they really wanted to share, and they're able to do that.
Absolutely. Have you had any instances that you can recall of specific stories or specific messages that they've tried to pass on? Or at least that you can share. I don't know if there's a ghost paranormal investigator confidentiality or something like that.
Yeah, there's some that we can share, and then there's some that we don't usually. The one that I typically share from that scenario is we had a young woman who was on the ghost tour. And they say that when you do a lot of investigating, like the spirits know that's going on. And so if they know you're coming to something like this where you're looking for ghosts, sometimes they'll tag along. And in this instance, this young woman comes and where they're doing an investigation. They've got the spirit box there, and a name comes across, and the investigator says, does anybody know that name? And they all shake their head, but she's getting really quiet. And then next thing that comes across is, it says a nickname, and then it says, I love you. And they said, does that make sense to anybody? And this girl gets really quiet now. And then it says something to the effect of, I'm happy with what you're doing. And she instant waterworks. The girl just
Oh.
starts bawling at this point. And it turns out that the name that was said at the beginning was her grandfather's name.
Mhm.
And her grandfather had passed away, oh gosh, about a year, I think, before this incident. And before he passed away, they were starting a business together, and they got into a fight. They had a disagreement with how this business was being run that they were
Mhm.
starting together. And then so he leaves with this disagreement and then passes away. And so she was obviously upset because she had, before this argument and disagreement, she had been really close with her grandfather. And so then they do this investigation, and he says, I'm proud of you and I'm happy with what you're doing. And so she was able to get the closure on that. And then just having that experience, him being able to, a small tiff and disagreement that ended up being never able to resolve, they were able to resolve it.
That's absolutely beautiful. I love that that was able to be facilitated, and that's just a fantastic thing. That makes me so happy. Rebecca, this has been so insightful. If people wanted to learn more about you or more about ghosts or your offerings, where would you recommend that they go?
So cambryhouse.com. So Cambre is how you spell Cambry. So cambryhouse.com is my website. I'm on Facebook as Cambry House. Instagram is Cambry period house. And you can generally find me about anywhere if you search Cambry. At
For
this
sure.
point, I should pop up in a search. I cannot guarantee you're going to have an experience with a deceased relative. So, unfortunately, I'm not a medium. That's
Right.
not exactly what we do, but we definitely like to help facilitate people having a paranormal experience.
Fantastic. I can't thank you enough for joining me. This has been so insightful. My name is Matt Storrs, and this has been Mattsplaining.